Being young sucks. That was the name and the main focus of one of our units in my English 3 class. And to us, a class full of juniors struggling through honors and AP classes while juggling sports, clubs, jobs, and social lives, that seemed like a really obvious statement. But it was never something that we'd ever heard acknowledged or validated by the adults around us. In fact, my English teacher, who recently graduated from college and had attended the same high school as us, seemed to be the only adult who truly grasped what we were all going through. He hadn't forgotten, as I believe many adults have, what it's like to be a teenager, too old to avoid the responsibility of adulthood, while simultaneously too young to be taken seriously by adults, all the while struggling to plan our future and figure out who we are. But I believe this suckiness, for lack of a better word, of being young goes deeper than just the lack of recognition from adults. Instead, the main culprit is the structure of our school system, which overlooks, ignores, and exacerbates the rising rates of mental health issues in teens. To best describe what I mean, I'd like to read a poem that I discovered many years ago and I believe encapsulates the high school experience. Today I heard the phrase, "It looks good on college applications," 11 times. Teachers tell me they're preparing me for real life, as if the first 18 years are a free trial. Getting an education turned out to be a competition I never agreed to enter. I used to think in weekdays, and now I think in test dates. Nothing is heavier than this backpack, except maybe my eyelids. I'm losing sleep, losing weight, losing my mind. I'm so lost. Even as I write this, I know nothing I have to say matters, unless it's written in Times New Roman 12-point font. I think about that poem a lot, and the longer I remain in school, the more I'm able to understand, and the deeper each line resonates with me. Today I heard the line, "It looks good on college applications," 11 times. Every decision I make, every club I join, every class I sign up for, are all touched by the looming question, how would this look on my college applications? I've stopped choosing classes that interest me because they'll hurt my GPA, and I stick solely to AP and honors classes, even if they're completely separate from what I want to do in the future. I've been trained to completely disregard even what I want to do in the present because my future is more important. Teachers tell me they're preparing me for real life, as if the first 18 years are a free trial. My whole life, I've never had a solid answer to the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? There are so many things I'm interested in and want to learn about. I couldn't imagine choosing one thing for the rest of my life. Even early on, school forced us to place ourselves in these boxes. Do you want to study STEM or the humanities? Do you want to go to college or trade school? In high school, this became a large source of stress as college applications loomed closer and closer, and I still had no idea what I wanted to do, much less what I wanted to major in. Getting an education turned out to be a competition I never agreed to enter. Since elementary school, I've been in a constant battle with my classmates, everyone striving to get the highest grade on a test or validation from the teacher. In middle school, I was consumed with the stress of getting a bad grade, lest I fall behind the rest of my classmates. We were warring over 1% differences in our grades and fighting for who could get the most extra credit, clawing our way to the top. I broke down in a panic if I even thought I forgot my homework, and movie nights were ruined as I had anxiety attacks when my grade in math dropped to a B. Now in high school, we're ranked by our GPA, so our standing is known to everyone. The girl in my class who's number 1 tells me she's terrified of losing her spot, even though it's not something she personally values. We sabotage each other, we gossip about GPAs and who has a B in English. Meanwhile, we're all killing ourselves to get everything done. I used to think in weekdays, and now I think in test dates. Nothing is heavier than this backpack, except maybe my eyelids. Sophomore year, I quit sleeping. Between sports, honors and AP classes, and a million clubs, I had no time and something had to be sacrificed. My whole life, the only value I ever saw in myself was in my grades, so it couldn't be that. And my clubs and sports couldn't be given up because how would that look on my college applications? Instead, I decided that I would stop sleeping. I stayed awake for anywhere from 30 to 50 hours at a time, before crashing for anywhere between 2 to 10 hours, depending on how much homework I had that night. I was consuming hundreds of milligrams of caffeine just to stay awake, and I would stay awake for hours and repeat the cycle over and over and over again until I physically couldn't. I would stay awake and constantly put the lives of myself and others in danger to drive home barely conscious. I'm losing sleep, losing weight, losing my mind. I'd come to fear sleep, associating it with failure and constantly pushing myself to stay awake for longer and longer, even if I didn't need to. I became obsessed with it, constantly thinking about how to stay awake for longer and hating myself for sleeping. Over the past 5 years, I've developed eating disorders, which acted as coping mechanisms for all of the stress and anxiety that I was experiencing. I struggled with depression and self-harm, which became an addiction I couldn't quit. When it all became too much, school, competition, my future, I attempted suicide twice. I'm so lost. Now as I approach SATs and college applications, I know that this is what I've been preparing for my whole life. The fear that all my hard work may be in vain is paralyzing. After my attempts, I fell into the deepest depressive episode I've ever experienced. It was an incredibly dark place, and it was very difficult to see a way out. I didn't do schoolwork, and my grades suffered the consequences, which is something that I'm still recovering from. But I also began to see life differently. Every event or holiday that I lived through after my attempt, I considered how I almost never got the chance to experience it. This new perspective helped me push through my depression and appreciate life more. I persevered, escaped the episode, and today I'm 112 days clean from self-harm, my longest streak in the past 2 years of a 5-year addiction. Of everything that I've learned in my 12 years of going to school, I think the most important lesson I've taken away is to never sacrifice living in the present to live in the future. Tomorrow is never promised, and you never know how long you will have to enjoy your life, so enjoy it now. A famous Benjamin Franklin quote says, "Don't put off until tomorrow what you can do today." And this is often used to inspire people to get more work done and to work harder, but I think it means just the opposite. Do not suffer to be happy in the future when you could be happy now. Now when I'm asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? I know my answer, and I want to be a teacher. It was thanks to the support and kindness of wonderful teachers that I'm still here today, and I want to be that person for other teens and students who are struggling as well. I want to do for students what my English teacher did for me, help show them that though an education is important, it's not worth your friendships, not worth your sleep, and not worth your life. But I also know that if I change my mind, that that's okay. Not everything has to be set in stone and planned to a T as I once thought. There's certainly some irony in the idea that I want to go to school forever, but I also hope that by the time I return to high school, things will be different, that students won't be pitted against each other and instead taught to explore their interests and collaborate, that tests and essays are not the measure of one's intelligence, but instead their ideas, thoughts, and passions. But if not, hello class, I'm Miss McCarthy, and things are going to be different. But for now, even as I write this, I know nothing I have to say matters, unless it's typed in Times New Roman 12-point font.